after the meal, the older men would be sitting around, and they would be listening in a corner, listening to the baseball game. And I remember as a youngster, they would talk about when they were boys and when they were young men, and how they grew up, how they learned how to do this and that, work ethic. It was like group mentoring in a way. So they were like role models. They were there to compliment you when you did well and celebrate some achievement that you did in school, or also there to chastise you and correct you. It was like my parents had given everybody in the church and in our neighborhood the license or the authority to correct us when they were out of our sight. So
that was that day.
Yeah, so that was a different type of culture and upbringing, which has dramatically changed now.
Welcome to the Shattered Mindset Podcast, wisdom from life's turning points and defining moments. I'm your host, Melvin Larry, and I am so excited to be here with my friend, my mentor, my spiritual leader, Reverend Albert Johnson. Hello, sir. How you doing?
Doing great.
Man, it's good to see you, sir.
Good to be seen.
Yeah, it's really good to be seen. Well, listen, what inspired you to take the time to just sit down with me today?
Well, I guess it's my personal mission statement, and I had to craft this some years ago, which was part of my leadership journey, and that was to craft a personal mission statement and also to articulate in writing my personal core values as well. So I'm here to fulfill my personal mission statement, which is to glorify God by sharing with others what God has uniquely invested in me.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And as far as your core values, can you maybe articulate a little bit of that with us?
Well, I had about 20 of them. I cut it down somewhat, but just a few of them is to take criticism graciously, and also to be fair in all of my dealings, to respond rather than reacting to crisis, and to always put God first and family in my life before everything else. And that comes from, I did have an affair one time, and that affair was, the other woman was the church.
The church was the other woman.
Yeah,
and that happens a lot.
Yes, I spent more time with the church as a young pastor, and I realized that what came to me was that Jesus paid it all and left no balance dues for me to pay.
Yeah.
So I had to learn that hard lesson because I was not cultivating the relationship with my wife and family like I should have, and so that was very sobering and convicting for me. And so that's another core value among the other.
You know, you describe yourself as a born-again Christian, and I know that you are a son of a preacher. And would you just kind of maybe share a bit of the turning point in your life of when that all came about for you and what it still means to you today?
It happened when I was a young man that I watched my father. My father and my grandfather were pastors, and come to find out that both of them were church planners. That's the modern term now. Back then, they would talk about founder and pastor, or my father used to use the term organizer. But I watched how he was a community type pastor. I mean, he loved people, and he didn't spend a whole lot of time in the church, in the office. He was out in the community, and even the people that didn't go to church or attend church or were members of the church that I grew up in, he was like their pastor. And as I got older, I ran into some of them, and they would talk about how such a good man that he was. But I watched him, and as he ministered and shepherded to people, and he would do some extraordinary things. And what really turned me off was some of the people that he helped. They were the ones that wound up kicking him for no reason. And you know, what he had to go through in pastoring. In my mind, I said that's the last thing. I never wanted to do that. So I had a disdain for that part of it. But it was, I guess, in the early 70s that I knew that I was called a priest, but I ran from it. And I was a trucker in 1973. I bought my own rig, and it was going to be a stepping stone to my career, being a successful businessman.
Now, wait a minute. How do you go from ministry to trucking? I guess when you ran, you decided you're going to really run hard and drive hard too.
Well, I was a member of the church, and I was very active, but I wanted to do something. I had an ambition to be a successful businessman. So some friends of mine talked to me about owning my own 18-wheeler, and they talked about the money that you could make. But I didn't want to stay out on the road. I wanted to be the stepping stone to fund the Al Johnson Enterprises. I can't even remember the name that I came up with. But it was I had a load of heavy machinery, and I was on a 2-lane highway in 1973 in the Blue Ridge Mountains on my way to Kingsport, Tennessee. And I was talking to the driver that I paid to help me to drive cross country. And it was a decline going down, and down at the bottom I could see ahead. It was a hairpin curve going around. So it was a mountain wall on this side and a big drop on the other side, and I lost the air in my brakes.
Ooh.
And so this loud buzzing was going off. And long story short, it's like we're going to lose our lives. But anyway, I was saved or delivered from that. And then as I sat down and for about a couple of hours after my knees quit shaking and so forth, that the Lord was speaking to me that this is what I want you to do. And so I said, yes, Lord, I'll go. That was 1973. But I said, I'm not doing this. So for another 2 years, it was I fasted for 6.5 days through the 4th of July in 1975. And total fast, no food, no liquids at all. And on that Sunday after the 4th of July in 1975, right before the benediction, I got up and confessed my call to preach. And I've been on that road ever since. I haven't looked back, and don't regret it at all.
Yeah, it's been quite a road for you because you've grown into something. Let me just, before we get away too far, tell me where in that journey the Army came in, because at some place, in some point, you became a soldier. Tell me about that part. Well,
my first time I went in was in 1962, and I was an angry young man at 17, ambitious but angry, and I was kind of a rebel without a cause.
Most rebels are.
So I understand young people in their teens when they have this anger and bitterness and so forth. And anyway, I had some issues that was going on in my life, and it's like nobody really understood what was going on with me. So I begged my parents to sign for me to go into the Army. And when I went into the Army, it was during the weekend of the Bay of Pigs.
Wow.
When Kennedy and Khrushchev were, back and forth about the missile crisis. I didn't even know that. I wasn't keeping up with politics or anything. But anyway, that was my first time in. And I got out right when the United States was advising the Vietnamese, South Vietnamese, and they began fighting. This was like around 1965. And so I got out right before they started fighting. I got out in 1966. But after my call to preach, I was directed to go back into the Army after a 9.5-year break. And I went back into the chaplaincy. And I wound up in California. And I was there from 1976 to 86. And that's where I really learned what ministry was all about.
Wow.
Not in Chicago, where I was born and grew up. And I learned so much. And that was the foundation of me doing ministry and just out in the community, connecting with people.
Is that how it really shaped your beginning in the ministry?
Yes.
That experience?
Absolutely.
What kind of an impact did it have on you coming from your first experience and going into your second experience? What kind of a life impact did it have on, your direction and going from the angry young man to the chaplain in the ministry?
In hindsight, I can understand why I went back into the military. And I had two choices. The Army gave me two choices, either Fort McPherson, Georgia, or Fort Ord, California, which is the central coast of California, Monterey, Carmel, Pebble Beach, that area. That's where Fort Ord is. And after chaplain school in Staten Island, New York, I wound up going to California. And it was there that it's like God had prepared this training specialized for me, because there were some great men of God, great pastors, and I could do some name dropping and name calling that I never would have met. And somehow they found favor in me, and they took me under their wings and shared with me one-on-one many things about the ministry that helped me through and blessed me, and how to love people. And in fact, I was discipled then. I had never been discipled, even though I had been a Christian since 11 years old. Right. The hard questions, because your personal life has to be together before you can minister to people. And
should be.
Yeah. So they would ask me hard questions, how are you handling your finances? How often do you date your wife? Do y'all have a day that you get together and you don't talk about children, you don't talk about bills, you don't talk about the church, but you're dating and so forth. And so that helped with my personal life, but it also helped me to love people, no matter whether it was, if they were addicted to dope or alcohol or, whatever was going on. Their behavior was, as they say, off the chain on one hand, but seeing them as people, as a human being that God loves, no matter what their behavior is, and it's an opportunity for them for their lives to be transformed and to be used to be that catalyst.
Well, you talk about how these leaders saw something in you, and you as a leader, you've mentored and trained ministers and church leaders across different generations. What are some of the things that you yourself looked for in these persons who coming into the ministry, who is really truly called to lead?
One of the things that I've discovered about many that are in ministry is a number of them suffer from an identity crisis, a personal identity.
What does that mean?
Many of them are feel that the title and the degrees define who they are.
I see.
In mentoring, I don't give advice per se, but I do more of coaching. And that is, I'm asking questions, open-end questions pertaining to their lives. And they have to grapple with it in order to answer it. And so that's mentoring is a trust.
Yeah.
And, that they can be transparent without any threat that what they share will be taken out of the room or where we. So, and I've seen where prominent pastors and preachers that have great congregations and what have you, they had to ponder a long time to really answer that. And I asked them about their core values. What are the guiding principles that you make decisions in your life, and even decisions for your congregation? What about that? How do you deal with a person that's kind of a thorn in your flesh?
Okay.
As a member, they're not your people; they're God's people. So that it's those kinds of things, and then doing church planner assessment. I mean, when a man says that I have a calling to plant a church or to start a church, and I was trained to assess the potential church planner, pastor, and the wife, and sometimes we would spend as long as 4 hours. And the premise in that is that your past experience is a clear indicator of what your present and going forward is going to be. So
I so agree with that.
So that's it's more of the person rather than just the calling. You have to know who you are before you can deal with other people.
So, tell me about a time, or has there ever been a time where you mentored somebody that reminded you of you, both the rebel you and the more refined you but in ministry? Have you ever mentored somebody like that?
That's well educated. He has 2 master's degrees and an earned doctorate, and he's pastoring a church. One of the things with churches, every church has its own personality and church culture, and so sometimes the pastor's personality and his church experience out of his church culture conflicts or clashes with the congregation that he's going to pastor, and so you have to first get acquainted with the culture and develop relationships before you start turning over tables and changing things. So he's kind of a stubborn fella, good heart, love people, love God.
Stubborn can go both ways too, though.
Well, oh, absolutely, absolutely. But he went in ambitious and everything without really knowing the congregation, and I should say developing a solid relationship with them, to know who the influences are in the congregation, and gain the love and support before you start doing some major whatevers. And so I spent time with him. He'll call me. He'll call me up, and he'll just, sometimes an hour and a half, 2 hours. He just letting it all out. And so I'd coach him through it and everything. So in a sense, it reminded me of myself. I think mine was kind of unique. my rebellion and
How so?
stuff. Well, I guess I took responsibility and ownership of my shortcomings and the flaws and the weaknesses in order to do something about it. Whereas there are some that I've mentored, they're reluctant to do that.
Or in denial about it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like
Don't accept ownership.
no, right.
Right.
And not take responsibility.
Yeah.
That it's not all up to God, but it's down to you.
Yeah. Some people do that in church ministry, but also in secular management as well. Go in guns blazing, and
Absolutely.
and it's everybody's fault but theirs.
Yes.
Something's wrong with everybody except them. And they don't realize when they're pointing those three fingers pointing back at them, they don't see it, and they remain in denial. And I've seen that in ministry. I've also seen in management where people have gone in, and like you sort of alluded to, they are the positional leader, but they don't recognize who the actual leader is among the people.
Exactly.
And so they go in there with the authority, but the people recognize maybe that deacon as the leader, or maybe a non-official person because that person knew how to represent them. You ever see that?
Absolutely. Let me, before I answer that, let me go back to one of the things that I've learned relative to what we were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness is sometimes a big hurdle for a pastor or a leader to negotiate.
Giving it or asking for it?
Giving it. I remember one time a lady missed a meeting, and she came in late. We had already discussed it and settled it in a church conference, and she got up and she got real loud and so forth, and I kind of cut her off and rebuked her in front of everybody. And I was under conviction that night after the meeting, and it was in a Bible study, a congregational Bible study. Most of the members were there, and it was just on me that I had to apologize to her. And so I called her name, and I walked over to her, and I apologized for going off on her, and asked if she would, because it was wrong of me to do that. So, and she accepted my apology. Now, I've seen and I've known some very arrogant pastors and preachers that would never be on their agenda at all. But that's another aspect of shepherding and interacting with God's people. But you asked me a previous question.
No, that's okay. Let me just ask you this question now, because you've chaired some nonprofits, boards, and and just served in organizations and things that were outside of the pulpit. So how did you balance your spiritual vision with the realities of strategies and the governance and things of that sort?
Well, there is a humanity side of ministry that the church is not always equipped to do. And in some cases, it's a mistake, in my opinion, to replicate what somebody else is doing. And in my opinion, it's better to partner with somebody that's already doing it, or an organization that's already doing that shares the similar or same values that you have and the values of the ministry of the church. And so from that standpoint, I've always seen a nonprofit community-based organization as an extension of what the church is doing. And so I partnered with and served on boards and been chairman of boards of nonprofit organizations. And that has always been something. It keeps me connected with the community as well, because nonprofit organizations have avenues into the community that maybe the church is not taking advantage of. So I see it as a good thing from that standpoint.
How do you think overall churches and nonprofit organizations are congruent in what they do and being able to stay in, if you will, their own lane? The nonprofit not necessarily being a spiritual entity and whatever. How have you found that that's worked out?
Well, I know of churches right now that have an appendage to the church. It's a separate non-profit that the church has that's partnered with, but it's not a part of the church per se. They're like partners in it, and the pastor and some of the members might be on the board and what have you. But I found that it's like the tail wagging the dog. Sometimes more emphasis has been put on outreach and touching people's lives through the nonprofit than the church doing what it was called to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so the foundation, as I see it, is, and the platform is the Church of the Lord Jesus. Okay, so from there, everything else is an appendage or an extension of what the church has been commissioned to do. So,
this podcast, it's open to everybody, and I like to reach out to any and everybody. My core audience is men 35 to 55 and in the periphery around that. I'm more than 55 myself. You might not be quite there yet, but I like to address that because I don't know that we're spoken to enough, and we don't know enough about history. I heard you talk about being discipled, and it was an interesting thing for me to hear you say that you had never been discipled before, even though your father was a preacher, your grandfather was a preacher, and the thought process would automatically be that's it, and that's the difference between raised and disciple, being discipled.
absolutely.
But where I want to go is to find out from your thought process, what do men in that range, where do you see them in today? That was a different day 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago than the way men are going now and being led and leading. What do you think about today's man in that range?
Well, when I think about men in that age range, I have particular heart for men. The church has not always addressed men in that age range, particularly college age. Okay, they're out of high school, and so anywhere from 18, 19 to maybe 40, and sometimes 45, is the fact that they have not had the opportunity. Well, they may have had the opportunity, but to make decisions. I think that's one of the crucial things that men, well, all of us need, but particularly men, and that is how to make decisions. Years ago, they used to teach in college a subject called situation ethics. However, they don't do that now. I advocate that it should be taught in middle school, because that's the critical age right there. That's when they get set in their mindset, and in fact,
are they ready then?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but anyway, situation ethics. The professor or teacher, they would say, "Well, here's the situation, and you have to make a decision." So you look at it from the standpoint. So I believe that the solution is going this way, and here's what I need to do. Okay, so the question is, all right, you settle on that decision. Is there an alternative? Is there an option? And then what are the benefits or the consequences of that decision? That you have to process that. Okay, so that's something, and I'm getting redundant here. I believe parents, that's the best gift that you can give to your children, is to teach them how to make wise decisions, how to process that. Now, I understand that the critical thinking course now in colleges and universities is algebra. Okay, but
yeah, I've never used my algebra.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the point. So some smart person came up with that, just like taking phonics out of school and cursive. But anyway, I believe that's it starts there. The other thing is did they cross the bridge? There's when I say the bridge, we're born to be dependent. Our parents do everything for us, make decisions for us, feed us, and et cetera. Well, you get to a point where you have to put your foot on the bridge. Well, the bridge is from dependent to independent. So it's unfortunate that a lot of men have parked on the bridge. They haven't made it all the way over to being an independent person, like we were saying earlier, making decisions, taking responsibility for your actions.
I believe that, our lives are shaped by everything that happens in our lives, and whether it's an accident or incident or anything, and from way back early, they have these studies that they say that they can tell whether a person's going to be successful or not, or in prison or not when they're 5 years old. I don't know how real that is, but can you look? I remember you saying that you had an experience at 11 years old, but can you look back even beyond that, where you can see things about your life, even as a 5, 6, 7-year-old, that you could see it pattern for where it took your life and where your life is?
Well, I've always had strong men in my life. And as a youngster, I remember that, say, like after church, we would have free meals in the dining room of our church after service. But sometimes we'd have an afternoon service. We wouldn't have to pay for it or anything like that. But after the meal, the older men would be sitting around, and they would be listening in a corner, listening to the baseball game or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I remember as a youngster, they would talk about when they were boys and when they were young men, and how they grew up, and how they learned how to do this and that, work ethic. So it was like group mentoring in a way. Mm-hmm. And so they were like role models. They were there to compliment you when you did well and celebrate some achievement that you did in school or whatever. And but they were always also there to chastise you, mm-hmm. and correct you. It was like my parents had given everybody in the church and in our neighborhood the license or the authority to correct us when they were out of our sight. So,
that was that day.
Yeah, so that was a different type of culture and upbringing, which has dramatically changed now. But I believe that, and I see that in my maturation, that I had a three-dimensional relationship as a boy and as a man and as a young man, and even in the ministry. Three-dimensional relationship that I relate to my peers, guys that's on my same level, mm-hmm. okay, of experience, age, so forth. And then there's the fella that's struggling, okay. So I'm obligated to help somebody because somebody helped me. Mm-hmm. That's the other dimension. But then the third dimension is an older, wiser man, because he has something that I need, and every man needs. Mm-hmm. He has experience. He has wisdom to impart that you won't get in school, life experience. And he pours into you. Plus, there's an accountability factor for your growth and maturation. So the thing is with the three-dimensional relationship that you have to be careful of. You can't spend too much time helping the fellow that's weaker than you, because what will happen is that he'll pull you down. And sometimes you can be compassionate, but sometimes love is a kick in the pants.
How do you draw the line on that? From your compassion to, your wisdom in knowing when you gotta make a break. What that old thing? Gotta know when to hold them, when to fold them, when to walk away, when to run.
It's a spiritual connection.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. I can attribute to the Holy Spirit guiding to know when to, as you say, fold them. I mean, if you're down there and say, well, man, you down here in the mud and up to your neck, let me get down here with you. You want to get out? Yeah. I just need a little help. I said, well, we're going to fight and get up out of this together.
Yeah.
But if he says, this mud smells pretty good, I think I just want to. So it's like, see you, bye. So
you don't want to participate in his own rescue.
Yeah. So those kind of folks, I've learned to put them in the hands of the Lord. It's a bigger fight than I have the capacity to deal with. Spend too much time with your peers, you'll stagnate. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then with the older and wiser, if you spend too much time there and don't have a balance, then you have a tendency, if you're not careful, to be arrogant and feel like you're better because you learn something that maybe your peers didn't know.
So tell me about that young Albert, that young child Albert, and how you and you talked about the strong men around you and the influences on you. How did you parlay that yourself into accepting that I'm going to be different, than where I was when I was 5, when I was 12 and 13, and how did you find the different stages of your life to change?
Well,
take me back to the little guy.
Okay. I have to say it in hindsight. The pastor that I'm serving with now, Pastor Ben Lang, he says this, and it's so true. He says, "Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future."
Mm-hmm.
So it's who you associate with, and I really didn't value what was poured into me as a boy growing up. But in hindsight, I can see a little of Mr. Stillwell.
Mr.
Stillwell.
Mr. Stillwell.
He was a community guy that lived in our block, and we never knew what he did as far as business or what have you, but he made sure that all the boys in our neighborhood went to camp up in Wisconsin. We don't know where the money came from or what have you, but
wow.
Every summer he would do that. He was a role model, and there were other men in the neighborhood. And, you see these men and in the church and the community, and they will take time and just kind of pour little nuggets into you in passing, and sometimes they'll sit down with you, and which doesn't happen very often now. So I can see that all of that was poured into me, along with my parents, particularly my father. I looked up to him. He was like my hero, and so he's very disciplined, and the fact that people looked up to him, he would mediate church fights. They would call on Dr. Johnson, in Chicago, behind the scenes. If there was a crisis in the church, they would call on him to mediate. And so all of that, when you put it all together, I think that was a powerful influence on my life.
How did your childhood, your upbringing affect or impact your parenting?
Oh, big time. From the standpoint that I'm somewhat old school, but I've moderated it, to a point. I had 2 girls, okay. Both of them went to college and so forth, and I learned that at a certain point they need to be independent women. And so I learned from the eagles. The eagles feed the eaglets and train them how to fly and everything. And then I understand that they sew little burrs or stickers up in the nest. And once they learn how to fly and everything, Mom and Pop Eagle, they leave the nest.
See?
And when the young eagles come back to the nest, Mom and Pop is gone, and they didn't leave a forwarding address.
You can't stay here.
but thank God, my 2 daughters, when they left the nest, they never came back to live. And I know that's a phenomenon now that many, because of the economy and so forth, but that they had to go. They had to stand on their own 2 feet. They had to grapple with life, and I could give them advice or what have you, and if it was a real crisis, maybe monetary, what have you. But
Yeah.
I taught them how to make decisions, and so that was a carryover from the discipline. I mean, you have to understand, my father was born in 1898. Okay,
Yeah.
my mother was born in 1904.
Okay. Wow.
And I was born right when World War II was ending. So the people in my life were old people.
Got it.
Even in the military, the ones that were over me, the sergeants, what have you, they went through World War II and the Korean conflict, and they were still in, and they were the ones that was training me. So a lot of those disciplines and values is in me, and so I passed it on to them, and so that helped to shape.
What do you think that today's man is getting right, and what do you think that we're missing it?
I think we're missing the principle of mentoring, having someone that you can trust, that care about you, that love you, rather than being the Lone Ranger. A lot of young men are Lone Rangers, but my thought to those young men that's doing the Lone Ranger thing, the Lone Ranger had a Tonto.
He had a Tonto, that's for sure.
So you need someone, because men, they'll talk about sports, they'll talk about the job, they'll talk about this and that, money, whatever, politics, but they won't talk about what's in here.
Why do you think we won't talk?
Because it's a trust factor. Because many men, young men, have been hurt and betrayed by people. They tell someone in confidence, and then they hear it later on. Well,
But that happens to women too. What do you think historically or foundationally it is that keeps men sheltered? Culturally, traditionally, I don't know. We just tend to be somewhat sheltered and withdrawn within ourselves. I mean, like my wife and I talk about it sometimes, and that she can go on a trip with a girlfriend, and there's going to be conversation the whole trip. You and I could go on a trip, 6-hour trip, and we may say 10, 12 words, and then at the end of it, we say, man, we had a good time,
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I guess women are wired to be open and transparent, and where men, sometimes they're not. Sometimes men are not respected. Okay, for his manhood. That's not 100% true. However, it has to do with relationships. And I believe that a lot of men have not had the advantage of good, solid relationships. People that they can trust, that they love and they love them, and they care about them, and want to see them progress and do well in life, and to pour into them, or to be accountable for their growth and whatever challenges they have. Well, man, how you doing now? You told me about this last week. How's it coming?
Yeah.
That accountability factor, which is part of the Christian ethic. I mean, it's in the Bible, but we don't. How can I say? We don't always encourage it or orchestrate it or push it. But when you really think about it, everything that God created grows in relationship to something or someone else. Flowers, trees, grass need soil, sunlight, and water. People need to be in touch with God, okay, vertically.
Mm-hmm.
But they need to be in fellowship and in connection and in relationship horizontally with others.
Mm-hmm.
The real challenge is the horizontal relationships. How do we choose our friends? How do we choose our relationships? And it has to be people of integrity.
How do we choose that?
Which is a very under attack. In fact, it's just about gone in this country now. Yeah. There is no integrity. The lack of integrity is I don't know where it's going.
So, what is the survival mechanism for our society today? What is the society, the survival, not just the survival, but the thriving? Where does that come from? How do we survive? How do we thrive? How do we move forward?
It begins, in my opinion, with the family. Family. That is the first unit of society that God put together, was the family. And Scripture gives the principles by which a family can stay together, can thrive, can be the children can maturate and be transformed to be responsible people with values and to live with integrity, and to how to treat others in relationships, and even people that are not, or those folks that are adamant to you. I won't say enemies per se. How to deal with that as well. All of that is taught, but you can't do it by yourself. I mean, this business about I'm a self-made man or I'm a self-made woman.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's the biggest lie.
How so?
Because it didn't just come out of the air.
Yeah.
What you learned. You interacted or you picked up bits and pieces here and there. Mm-hmm. It was somebody else in your life that, or in your pathway.
But what differentiates different people? Because when I think about people who talk about being a self-made man or woman, people just tend to have different motivations, and you'll see a person and you'll say, man, he just got a natural knack for it, or something of that sort, or man, he just pulled himself up by his own bootstraps and all of that. What makes the difference between one person who seems to just have a knack for it and the other person who seems to struggle? And, I mean, I think about my own children, and I think my own children, and they raised in the same household, and they're just like night and day in some respects. I mean, some of them have just a knack for this. Some of them have no knack for it. Mm-hmm. It's just, where does all of that come from? How do you balance that? And especially in line with when you talk about the self-made person versus that opposite person.
Well, there's a thing that I do in training. It's 3 concentric circles. I probably got it from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3 concentric circles is, one circle is knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
The other circle is skills, okay, and experience. And the third circle is critical. Desire.
Desire, okay.
When you put the 3 together, that's where what you just described, that they have a knack for it, is because they have the desire which drives them to engage the knowledge and the skills that they picked up. They have the desire to put it together in order to produce a particular result. So you can have the knowledge, you can have the degrees, you can have the education, you can have the skill and experience, the know-how of how to do something. But brother, if you don't have that desire,
Mm-hmm.
nothing's going to move, nothing's going to happen, and there is an attack, a frontal attack on folks' desire and motivation to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's true, and I think that the attack is shifting the desire, toward different things, that may not be as fulfilling or beneficial to our growth and our development. And we have so many distractions, our phones, our social medias, and there's just so much stuff in front of us now. How do we stay focused? How do we get focused? How do we get away from it?
Well, one of my favorite words lately is why.
Mm-hmm.
We deal with the how
Mm-hmm.
and the what.
Mm-hmm.
But how many times do we ask the question of ourselves, why?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? Why do I feel this way?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I not doing? Or why am I doing something that I know is not right or that's not adding value to my life?
Yeah.
Case in point, just a quick illustration. I used to drink and I used to smoke. Okay. And it came to me, I remember the year, 1972, that the thought came to me about alcohol. And what came to my mind was that alcohol is made out of rotten ingredients. Now, there's a fancy word for it,
Mm-hmm.
fermentation, but it still means rotten.
Okay.
Rotten corn, rotten barley, rotten
Most people don't think of it like that.
rotten grapes. No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the why. Why are you drinking? Why did you start drinking? So we could take time to talk about that, but that's what came to me, that all alcoholic beverages are made out of rotten ingredients. So the question that came in my mind: would you eat rotten meat?
Mm.
Would you put rotten food in your mouth and in your stomach?
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, with smoking, and I used to buy Benson and Hedges menthol 100s in the hard pack by the carton. I was serious. I was committed.
Benson and Hedges.
And what came over me, that cigarettes, you have dried leaves wrapped in paper. You stick some fire to it. You suck smoke down into your lungs and blow it out. Suck it down and blow it out. And when I thought about the alcohol and I thought about the smoking, for me, now I'm not calling anybody stupid, but for me it was stupid.
Mm.
It didn't make sense because it was not adding any value to my body, my life, or anything like that. Mm-hmm. In fact, it was tearing it down. Okay. Yeah. And so the why is the big question, how we can get out of this. We have to re-examine our lives. Take inventory. There's this tradition of spring cleaning, but I think we need to call time out and have a meeting with ourselves. Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily have to call anybody, but have a meeting with yourself and just look at your life, your routine of what you do and why you do those things that are distasteful, or those things that you do out of habit, but it has no rhyme or reason. Why? Yeah. Why? So a lot of things can be eliminated if we have the courage to ask that question.
If you were to leave a message with this audience, what's the final message that you could leave with?
Life is a journey, and there are phases of the journey, and making transition from one stage of life to another is something that we need to be cognizant of. And that's the basis of decisions. And of course, I mentioned the fact that we need somebody in our lives. Now, it could be our wife. It could be, if you're single, another brother. And I'm not talking about an illicit kind of relationship, but I mean a real brotherly love kind of relationship that he holds you accountable and you hold him accountable for your growth and maturity. But you learn that what you did in your teenage years will not work for you in your 20s and 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So don't try to bring that over. Now, there's some principles that you may have learned, but functionally, it some of those things that you did in practice won't work. So you leave that behind and appreciate your 20s and 30s. And then you get to a point where when you get in your 40s and 50s, what you did in previous phases of your life don't work. And so, trying to be dap daddy at 55, 60 years old, like you were when you were a teenager, trying to keep up with what you used to be. Appreciate and enjoy that phase of your life, and of course, as you grow older, I mean, you learn because you've never been this age before or in this phase of life. Explore it and find out what it's all about. And if it's not happening for you, the question is, what do I need to do to enhance my life in order to appreciate the phase of life that I'm in? And then, of course, for me, and I pass it on to anybody, get to know the Lord. Get to know Him. It's not about religion, but it's about relationship. Knowing God through His Son, Jesus Christ. Once you have that encounter and you receive Him as Lord and Savior, your life will never be the same. I mean, you'll go to frontiers in life that you never dreamed and imagined of, and the joy, not happiness, is greater than what you've ever experienced in your life.
Wow, that's strong. That's powerful. I'm excited about that. Anything else you want to add?
Hopefully, what I've shared has been a blessing to whoever's watching, and I appreciate Mr. Melvin Larry. I have high regards and high respect for him, and I wish him much success in his career in this venture, in his podcast, and hopefully, and I pray that it will touch many more lives. Thank you, Mr. Larry.
Well, you certainly touched my life in many ways, and things don't just happen by accident, and you were brought into my life by a mutual friend, and that was the purpose of that person at that particular time, was to connect you and me, and it's been a blessing to me in many, many ways, and so I thank you for sharing your time and your knowledge, your wisdom, and I thank Miss Marvine for sharing you with us. And so hey, listen, it's been a joy for me in many, many ways, and we're gonna do some more of this.
Thank you, sir.
So listen, folks. Hey, that's gonna do it for us. I'm so excited to have had Reverend Johnson with us today. But in the meantime, I just want you to just do something for me, and that's to keep adapting, keep adjusting, keep growing, keep reaching for those higher horizons. We'll see you the next time on the Shattered Mindset podcast. Take care. Take charge. God bless. We'll see you.